dancing in Jingle Bell Square in the frosty air. What a right time, it's the right time to rock the night away. Jingle bell time, it's a swell time to go riding in a one-horse sleigh. Giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet, jingle around the clock. Mix and a mingle in the jingling beat. That's the jingle bell, that's the jingle bell, that's the jingle bell rock. We are the ones who don't know what we're fighting for. Give us a gun and send us all off to war. We are the ones who grow up in violent homes. We are the ones who don't know what's right or wrong. I know. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No more. We are the ones who don't know why we're losing score. Give them a badge so they could send us to the morgue. Yeah, we are the ones who are scared to walk out the door. We are the ones who don't know what we're dying for. I know. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No. Get off his fucking neck. Let me shoot you. He can't fucking breathe. So let me shoot you. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who just don't give a fuck now. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who were born into war. We are the ones, we are the ones, we are the ones who just don't give a fuck no more. No.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of I'm No Joe, your home for all things combat sports and the place where every armchair quarterback can feel like Ben Bronco. The views and opinions presented on the I'm No Joe channel belong solely to the person expressing them, no one else. If we say it, that means we meant it. That being said, this show does contain adult themes, adult content, and general shit that you shouldn't be letting your kids intake. Be advised, viewer discretion is recommended. Proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. If it's Thursday, it's I'm No Joe. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages to the latest episode of the I'm a No Joe podcast. As you can probably see, we are having a few hiccups this evening. Life happens as it tends to around here. Golf tee should be hopping in hopefully in a little bit. I do believe our young fella has burnt the candle at both ends a little too much. I think he has passed out. I don't know if he's going to make it this evening, but either way, we persist on. We're going to kick things off around here. Hopefully, at least Golf Tee can jump in here in a little bit, but we're going to kick off nonetheless. That being said, we're going to start things off the way we like to around here with a little bit of news and recent events, fight announcements, rumor confirmations, cancellations, things like that. All the news relevant to you that has shaken down the MMA pipeline since we saw you wonderful folks last. First and foremost, starting right off up at the top, we have got one hitting in this weekend, confirmed Tuesday. Alan Nascimento is officially out of this weekend's Vegas 83 UFC card, but not to fear because Tim Elliott is stepping up on 4 days' notice to fill in. He will be there this Saturday. We will talk more about that fight later on, I can promise you. That being said, tis the season for the injury bug, it seems. Next weekend's final UFC event of the year, UFC 296 for December 16th, Giga Chikadze has been injured and had to pull out. But again, fret not, because Bryce Mitchell has agreed to step in on a week's notice to take on Josh Emmett. Man, the Tim Elliott situation, I feel like, actually makes that fight a little bit better. Bryce Mitchell, while I give him credit for stepping in on short notice, I don't know if that's a better fight. And I kind of feel like this actually works out in Josh Emmett's favor here, because I feel like Bryce Mitchell is such an easier fight for his style compared to Giga. We'll see what happens when we get to next weekend and we get to see a little bit of the embedded series and a little bit more of the social media things. But I'm saying, as of right now, the way things stand on paper, this looks good for Josh Emmett, and, you know, brave for Bryce Mitchell, but maybe not the best move in terms of career wise. We'll see how things play out as we get a little closer to next weekend, but these are my initial thoughts coming in. That being said, like I said, injury bug, tis the season. We got word this week that Jan Blachowicz is officially out of that UFC 297 first pay-per-view for next year in January. Rakic has suddenly taken to social media and tried to start a fight with Yuri Prohaska now. Yuri said that he would have no problem fighting him, but he would have to wait till at least February or March. And now Rakic is trying to say that he'd be more than willing to wait for that fight, since that's a better fight anyway, which A, no, it isn't. B, Rakic doesn't get to make that kind of a call. C, Jan should get the Yuri fight way before Rakic does, or Rakic should have to face Jan before he can face Yuri, in my opinion. Meritocratically, that just makes more sense in terms of the division standings and the way that the things should be playing out logically. That just makes more sense. But that's also most likely why the UFC is going to go the other direction and make the Rakic versus Yuri fight next for the number one contender, because UFC is going to do what the UFC is going to do. Is we know how that plays out. That being said, bold strategy, Cotton. The run back of the debut of Diana Belbita, Molly McCann versus Diana Belbita 2, takes place in the Apex February 3rd. The first one was a very tough fight for Belbita. 50-45s across the board for Molly McCann in Belbita's debut. They are both, granted, very different fighters now than they were 5 years ago, so we'll see how this one plays out. But this one very much feels like a tee up for Molly to try and get back in the swing of things, sort of expecting the fight to go similar or better than the first one did. I don't know that it's going to, but we'll see. We got a lot of time between now and February to see how that plays out. That being said, Superb Owl weekend, February 10th in the location TBD. UFC added an interesting fight to that card.
Max Payne Griffin stepping in against Jeremiah Wells. Max Griffin has been sidelined for a hot minute now, and I believe at the end of his contract. I think this might even be the last fight on his contract or the next to last fight on his contract. So he definitely needs a W in a big way. We'll see how he looks as we get a little closer to February, though. Un momento. That being said, UFC 298 the following weekend, February 17th from Anaheim, California, gave us a pair of announcements this week. The first one, maybe not as exciting as the second one, but still divisionally relevant. Andrea KGB Lee, annoying though she might be, taking on Miranda Maverick in a very interesting matchup here. Stylistically, this one should favor Lee, but Miranda has been allegedly doing a lot of work in the off time here, so we'll see what that work can come to once we actually get to Anaheim. If she has, I think she could really take Andrea Lee and do a lot of bad things to her. But if she's just been doing a lot of the same while she's been out, Lee could really come in and take one over here. So we'll see. But the really interesting one that they added to this pair, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Ikram Alaskarov. Fluffy Hernandez, for better or worse, is actually a great grappler and a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. And Ikram Alaskarov, that is his specialty. That is literally his bread and butter. He is a grappling monster. So that either A is going to give us a very horrible striking fight, as grappler versus grappler often tends to do, or is going to give us a very interesting high caliber on the ground predominant matchup between two very high level players in that world. Either way, I think it's going to be interesting. Ikram is really on his way up, and Fluffy is kind of just trying to tread water and keep his head above the waves right now. But a big win, or a win in a big way, against Ikram Alaskarov on his way up could do a whole lot for Hernandez as well. That being said, the UFC Saudi Arabia card for March 2nd has officially had its first fight confirmed. Mohamed Mukayev stepping in against Alex Perez. Very interesting fight. You can clearly tell that they are leaning to try and get Mukayev that sort of local support more than Perez obviously will have over there, but it's going to be interesting considering that fight card is just a couple months away, and the UFC's been doing a lot of last minute matchmaking, and I have a feeling with the money that the Saudis have been throwing around to get events over there, and this being the first UFC card over there, they're going to want to know the fight card before we get to the fight card. So I have a feeling that War Room is going to have to get churned in here pretty quick for the UFC. We should be getting some more fight announcements. We should be getting some more fight announcements for that card very soon. Just got word from Golf D here. He is on a family phone call right now. Should be in here as soon as he gets off the phone. That being said, probably the least exciting for me, but one of the biggest announcements of the week in terms of fight confirmations. This one's been rumored for a while. We've heard this fight being alleged in whispers for, I want to say, a month, maybe 2 months at this point. It is official. It is confirmed. Ink has been put to paper. Contracts are signed on both ends. UFC 299, March 9th, location still TBD. Caitlin Chukagian versus Macy Barber. Caitlin is trying to get back to the top. Macy is trying to climb her way up to the top. A big win in either favor here could do a lot for either one of those ladies, though I really don't think either one of them should be realistically close to the title in whatever weight class either one of them choose to be in, because they both bounced a little. But we don't get to pick and choose with what we've got right now, and that's kind of what we've got right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes of that as we get a little closer to it, see what kind of shape those ladies are in as we get a little closer to it, because that's a pay-per-view, and I guarantee there's going to be at least a little piece of that into the embedded series, as it often is. So we'll see as we get a little closer. That being said, a couple of not so fun announcements on the bottom side of the news segment here. The first one, a lot of us thought it was dead. A lot of us hoped it was dead. We got confirmation this week. It is not dead after all. The Ultimate Fighter Season 32, featuring featherweights and middleweights, will begin, or excuse me, is currently casting, will begin the actual filming in the end of January. They will begin airing in the beginning of June on ESPN and ESPN Plus. No mention of who the coaches are going to be, what the types of matchups, if it's just going to be a genuine Ultimate Fighters, 4 new guys against 4 new guys, or 4 new gals against 4 new gals. If it's who the coaches are going to be, we just know featherweight and middleweight. So I don't think it's going to be Strickland or I guess Volk, because this would be before either one of them fight, I believe. I don't think either one of them fight next weekend. I'll have to double check. But that being said, man, talk about trying to revive a long dead relic. The last one with McGregor and Chandler, nobody bought. The season wasn't that great. I watched enough of it to be able to talk about it, and even that wasn't that great. I don't know what they're going to do at this point to try and make it interesting, but it's going to have to be something huge. And McGregor wasn't huge enough to bring the last one back, so they're going to have to really back a dump truck full of money to somebody's house to try and pull this, back together and make it relevant. We'll see if they can or not. That being said, we got word and then confirmation this week that Jamal Hill had been arrested over the break for misdemeanor domestic violence and or battery/assault. Allegedly, he and his brother had gotten into a physical altercation, or a verbal altercation that turned into a physical altercation. The police were called. Hill was arrested. He is not speaking about it until they go to court for it. So we'll see. There are lots of speculations flying, but people closest to it are basically saying that Jamal Hill's brother used to live in the house that they were at. Things happened. Jamal Hill's brother no longer lived there, but then showed up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Tempers got heated. Things got out of hand. Ended up with police call and Jamal getting arrested. So we'll see how things actually play out. I'm sure we're going to get more of that story as we get closer to the actual court date for that. But another one of those situations where somebody who should be focusing on their fighting career, getting tied up into things outside of their fighting career that may well trickle back over and then affect their fighting career. Opportunity, I say with air quotes for those of you just listening. From what the rumors are saying, it sounds like this was a attempt by Jamal's brother to kind of extort him a little bit, and it didn't go well for him, obviously, but we'll see. It's never good to get arrested, especially when you're on the comeback trail, healing, trying to get back towards, fighting for a belt that you didn't lose, that you gave up, to his credit, but still, there's only one way to get that belt back, and that's fighting, and you can't do that if you're getting arrested. So we'll see how this one plays out. Still not a fun thing to hear, regardless of how it came to be. That being said, unfortunately, we go another week here having to say that we made it 7 more days without Dana White actually having to face any real world consequences for having slapped his wife multiple times last New Year's Eve down in Cabo San Lucas. And now that it is December, we are literally almost 1 full year from that happening. And no, Dana, having to live with the knowledge that it happened is not subsequent punishment, you fucking scumbag. That being said, I don't think either one of them have anything that I missed this week because neither one of them are here to throw that in. That being said, this would normally be the point where our young fellow brings in our slows, cans, and contenders segment to tell us all about the who's who and who could be who and who to watch for on the upcoming card this weekend. But again, unfortunately, he is not here. So let me take a drink, grab a vape. I will pull the card up and we will give a quick glance and see what's interesting. So we will go contenders first. There is an interesting lineup on this card. It's not the worst hangover card we have had this year by any stretch of the imagination. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. Let's see. We'll look early here. I'll leave main card for later on. So, immediate contender for me right out of the gate, Tatsuro Taira. I can't stop waving the fucking flag for that kid. I swear that guy is the most underrated and overhyped at the same time. When people talk about him, they can't stop talking about him. The problem is it's usually only after he wins that most people talk about him. So I feel like he definitely does not get enough shine, in my opinion. And I feel like Carlos Hernandez isn't really going to give him that much, if any, trouble. I feel skill-wise, Tatsura has enough to come in, put on a big fucking show fairly early in the card, and kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak, hopefully. That being said, just because you like who you like, and I'm gonna give Kanan Song contender mark early. Kevin Jousset is coming in with a lot of fucking hype, another French prospect. We'll see what he can actually do. Kanan Song is battle fucking tested, so he's basically got to get put away to get stopped. We'll see if Jousset can do that. I think that brings us into the main card. So we will call that there for my contenders. I'll leave the main card for talking about later here. In terms of cans in the prelim card, at least, I'm going to take a whole fight. I pretty sure I did it last week. If not, one of the other fellows did. But I'm going to do it this week. Steve Garcia versus Melcaziel Costa. I know the fight got scrapped last minute last week, but we don't need it that bad. There's nothing really exciting about that fight. I got nothing against either one of those guys, but we don't need that fight. This card already has enough fights on it. Yeah, that's my can for the prelims here. There's a couple more interesting fights for the main card, but I'm going to save those to talk about a little bit later here. I was hoping by now that Galti would have finished his phone call up. Let me see if I can pull up the UFC card, get some stats real quick. And I'll pull up our Tapology for last week just in case as well. Here we go. Pull up the odds here. Oh shit, there he is. Good. As I was pulling up fucking BetMGM.
All right. So that's where we're at. So you already talked about the double Dutch dick tripping of doom.
No. I was just pulling everything up. I was trying to draw out the cans and contenders early. Give you time to finish up the phone call.
Apologies on that. But you know, life happens.
Okay.
So then in that case, we'll jump right into last week's fucking Tapology results. Oh, I don't know how much I missed, but I'm sure this has been said, and I'll say it again. If you're not a member of I'm No Bookie, Group 965 over on Tapology, do yourself a favor and join us. Also, my name's TJ, by the way, in case you missed it. So last week for our group picks, let me tell you what, for the Benil Dariush Arman Sarukian card, this was the absolute worst shit show that we have ever done picking wise. There was not one person in our Tapology group, that the ones that we talk about regularly on here, that were above 500. Not one person. So when I say somebody won this week in our group, yeah, they got the head nod, but they really didn't win. So in this case, the head nod goes to Christian Slowick. Fucking 5 of 12 correct. Donna's behind him at 4 of 12. Vinny was at 4 of 12. I was at 4 of 12. And then we come down to the double Dutch dick jumping contest of doom. Old Meter and Old River Tour Dawn decided that they were going to hold each other's penises, play double Dutch together, and both score 150 points.
And the best part was it was because we both got one decision and one perfect, and neither one of them were the same goddamn fight.
Yeah. It was a weird look. To everyone's credit, none of the fights went the way anybody expected. Not to mention, the finishes that we saw this last weekend were definitely not ones you're going to see again for a long time. Especially not
historic.
Yeah, you had historic back-to-back fucking slam knockouts.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that. I think the last time they said there was a slam knockout was like 4 years ago or something, in like 2019. So that shit's few and far between. So overall, last weekend's card was weird. There was a lot of finishes. To be honest, for the card that they had put together, it turned out beautifully. Fighters showed up and showed out, that's for sure. But hopefully this week, everyone in our group redeems ourselves and we get back over that 500 mark. It's the first time that I can honestly remember that everybody in the group did that poorly. But then again, you can't use MMA math for everything. And fights aren't always going to go the way bookies think it's going to go. They're not going to go the way odds makers think it's going to go. Everybody has a puncher's chance or a slammer's chance in this case. And I'm pretty sure that there was at least more than fucking one coach that went in and said, do not slam to get out of an armbar or a triangle. Because I'm sure that had to be re-fucking pushed into people's head, that shit doesn't always work. But that also did show some failure on the jiu-jitsu side. So those of you who aren't aware, you hook the fucking leg when you're down there with an arm. But you know, what the fuck do I know? I'm just some random armchair quarterback here. Now, with that being said, please, if you haven't, join a group over on Tapology. I'm No Bookie, Group 965. Let us know who you are. We'll talk shit about you. We'll pat you on the back when you've done well. We'll group you in there with the rest of us when we all do shitty. It doesn't matter. Oh, that brings us into this week where we've got I know this has probably been said while I was away, but we have a card. It's something. There's a few notables on there, but it's not something I would go out of my way to make sure I tell everybody in the world to come watch. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the odds for this week, and we'll go from there. And as always, I'm going to be using the BetMGM odds on this. And for the most part, everything is pick'ems. And by pick'ems, I mean they're coin flips. There are a few outliers there, though. And those outliers are the ones I'm going to actually touch on. And one of them I'm very excited about because I love the fucking odds on it. Because this little Japanese bastard has been fucking on fire, and I think he's got a whole lot of potential. Tatsuro Taira and fucking Carlos Hernandez. They got Tatsura as a minus 650 favorite over a plus 425 underdog in Carlos Hernandez. To be honest, I think those are fucking straight on odds. Tatsuro, if you haven't seen him, I know he's not a household name yet, but he's got some greatness in him. I think we can see a lot out of this kid moving forward. So I don't think that's one where you want to bet the underdog. Just saying, probably not in your best interest. Oh, I'm going to bounce around here a little bit because there is one other one that I want to talk about that's really wide odds, but that was the first one I did want to talk about just because I'm on that Tatsura hype train. So, yeah, fucking toot. Let's go. The main event actually has some fairly wide odds in Chris Gutierrez and Song Yudong. They've got Chris Gutierrez as a plus 280 underdog and Yudong as a minus 375 favorite. Not hugely wide, but wide enough to where it's notable. And to be honest, if I'm the bookies, I might be adjusting those to be a little closer to a coin flip. Because when you've got a Chris Gutierrez who, during fucking interviews this week, because I don't know about anybody else or who's fucking lying to you, but yeah, I'm scared shitless. That's a man you got to be worried about when he's willing to say, yeah, you got to be scared to get in there. You're literally fighting, as he said, half naked in front of the fucking world. It makes sense. I'm not saying that those odds are wrong. I think Song Yudong's a good bit better than Chris Gutierrez. But maybe he'll come off of the last week's fucking intermissions talking about his coach and come out there and fucking kill somebody. Because you know what? Anybody who didn't watch those intermissions last week, they were going to make your fucking face water. By that, I mean they were tear jerkers. So that was out there. Maybe he'll have that pulling for him this week. One other slightly notable one I did want to touch on is the Steve Garcia. And I can't say that motherfucker's first name, but Costa. Garcia and Costa there. We've got Steve Garcia coming in as a plus 210 underdog, and Costa as a minus 275 favorite. Fairly coin flip-ish, but that's the next closest on widest odds on the cards there. Now, the other one that I want to talk about that does have good and wide cards, and we can all figure out why. As soon as you say the names, Shannon Ross and Park Hyung Sung, aka the Iron fucking Turtle. They have the Iron Turtle coming in as a minus 650 favorite over a plus 475 underdog in Shannon Ross.
You mixed your parks up.
Oh shit, I did. I was Jung Young Park. God damn it. Fuck me. I did mix that shit up. Either way.
When I saw it earlier, I thought it might be his little brother.
Nah, I would, but it's fucking Park's the first. God damn it. You know what it is? It's the fucking Korean names because they switch around what they consider first and last all the time. And
The surname and the family names.
Yeah, fucking me up. Yeah. Either way, we do this live. Shit happens. What are you gonna do? Either way, it's a very noticeable fucking difference in fucking odds there. Another really wide one. I really don't think that Shannon Ross is that good. So I think it fucking makes sense. He's a soup can at best. Gonna let somebody style on him, and on what was supposed to be a Fight Night China, right? That never really.
Originally, it's going to be
Originally.
Shanghai.
That never fucking came to fruition, and now it's back stateside, but they're still making sure all the Asian fighters get their fucking due here, which, to be honest, I'm perfectly all right with, because there's a lot of really good Asian fighters on this card. Like I said, it's not world breaking, but there's some fucking good ones on here, so that is what it is. Now, your co-main event doesn't have very wide odds. That's coin flip on the late notice Anthony Smith, Khalil Roundtree. And I say late notice relatively because he had 3 weeks or something like that. But none of the other fights on the entire card have wide odds. Everything else is coin flips across the park. So take that with a grain of salt and make your bets accordingly. In the meantime, join the I'm No Bookie group. Group 965 over on Tapology. Be your own bookie. Pick your own fights. We'll let you know how you do. I'll tell you when you trip over your dick. Or if maybe we decide to play a 3-way Dick of Doom double Dutch fucking trifecta. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, like nobody getting over 500% in our group.
Yeah, that's the first time in a long time that's happened. Like at least 6 months that I can think of off the top of my head. Since
It's been more than 6 months since that happened.
Yeah, it's very rare that we have more than 1 or 2 people, if that, go under 500 on our weekly picks like this. But to have everybody in the group predominantly fall under 500, that's one of those fucking legitimate rare instances. And I'd be willing to bet we might not have 100% batting average this week, but I bet we bounce back higher than we were last week. That being said, I completely forgot to mention, if you like what we get up to around here, patreon.com/I'mNoJoe. For as little as $1 a month, you can get your name at the end of every single episode, every broadcast we do on this particular channel here as a thank you, as well as unfettered access to the unaired and unairable content that we have for behind the scenes goodness, things that we literally couldn't even put on OnlyFans. It was just that damn hot. That being said, if you don't want to give up a buck, we understand. We do this pretty much every Thursday. There's fights to talk about over on youtube.com/I'mNoJoe. And the week after that, it all comes out in the audio format on anchor.fm/I'mNoJoe to be picked up on your podcast consumption platform. That podcast consumption platform of choice. We do this live. Be it Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, what have you. It's all available through there. That being said, before we get into all the interesting tidbits to pick through on this weekend's UFC fight card, I do want to go over the actual full fight menu for the weekend, because there is lots of punchy kicky to be had this weekend if that's what you are looking for. So this particular weekend, things start off at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time with the PFL Europe number 4. Their championships kick off. They are crowning their champs, giving away their $1 million. There are some names that the average casual will still recognize over there. The hardcore is going to know about half this roster, but some of these names very well could be household names in the next 6 months, depending on how these championships and how the PFL and Bellator acquisition and merger now plays out. That being said, Friday evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, over on Amazon Prime. One Fight Night 17. This is an all Muay Thai event. There are 8 Muay Thai fights kicking off, and the casuals probably will not know most of these names. The hardcores are going to know a couple here and there, but the fact that they put this on Prime shows you the confidence they have in these Muay Thai matches to be interesting to the average fan. They're not going to pick only 8 random fucking cans and then use their Amazon Prime money to push them. Chatri's smarter than that. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be good Muay Thai to watch Friday night over on Amazon Prime if you got the option. Kicking off Saturday, we start things off at noon Central Time over in the Czech Republic for Octagon 50, another one of those European UFC feeder events here. This is one of those, again, the casuals are not going to know most of the names here, but the hardcores will recognize about a quarter of this roster. There are some names here that have either been UFC or UFC adjacent, close enough that the hardcores will recognize some of these too. But either way, some of these names could be names that you're going to want to watch before they become the names that you're going to watch when they make it to the big show. That being said, UFC kicks off at 6:30 p.m. Central Time for the prelims Saturday evening for that Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez card. But that is not the end of the evening, because once that card is wrapping up, we will be getting into main card territory. Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis kicks off one of the last big boxing matches of the 2023 calendar year. Devin Haney had the option to fight Shakur Stevenson as his mandatory for the belt defense, and instead he decided to go up and wait and take on Regis Prograis. These guys do not fuck around. There are 4-pound weight classes and hydration limits for a reason in boxing. They finally control how big a dude can be. And so Devin Haney deciding after that Lomachenko fight didn't go the way that everybody probably thought it did if you were watching earlier this summer, instead of taking that Shakur Stevenson fight and staying down there, he's going up to 140 and he's taking on Prograis. This is not something that fighters traditionally do, and we have got a lot of divisional weight movement in boxing right now. This being one of the last big ones for 2023. Get your fucking popcorn out for Saturday night. Between the UFC and then this fucking Haney Prograis card, there's going to be a lot of fucking knuckles getting thrown Saturday evening. That being said, the reason we are here, the reason for the season, the meat and potatoes for this particular weekend, that UFC formerly Shanghai card, now back to the Apex, similar to what they did when the UFC South Korea card fell through and they brought it back to the Apex. Only luckily this time they're not putting the fight card on at 2:00 in the fucking morning starting prelims like they did with that South Korea card. So this one's going to be a little bit earlier. Still an evening card, but again, we talked about this. It is another hangover card because next weekend, even though it is the last one of the year, it is still a pay-per-view card. So this is our last fight night of the year and our last hangover card of the year. As I talked about earlier, the fact that Steve Garcia versus Melkaziel Costas fight got pushed back to this week when it fell off last week, instead of just waiting until sometime next year, putting it on one of the dozens of fight cards they're still actively building right now. They threw it right in a week later. We didn't really need this fight, but we're getting it anyways. That being said, there are still a couple on the card here I feel like are flying under the radar here. One of the big ones, in my opinion, I touched on it in the news, but I feel like it is worth going back to and giving a moment to here in the end of the show. On 4 days' notice, Tim Elliott stepping in against Sumer Daji. I mean, how can you fucking root against Tim Elliott at this point? That dude has quite literally uprooted his entire life, career, and fight style and camp, and moved everything cross fucking country, thrown everything up into the wind, and still has seemed to come out with a fucking smile and a chip in his fucking step every time that dude steps in the goddamn cage. And now he's doing it on 4 days fucking notice against a guy that they are most likely going to try to give the edge to against him on this short notice bout. I think I can see the quote-unquote advantage of Sumer Daji having the quote-unquote full camp Tim Elliott coming off the couch here. It's going to be a hard, short, fast weight cut, but we've seen it before. Tim Elliott is one of those dudes that's never really quote-unquote out of camp. He's always training to some degree, even when he's hurt, even when he's sick. He's staying active. He's teaching classes. He's helping other people get ready. He's never really out of shape or out of camp. So the fact that this is 4 days notice, yes, it's not ideal, but at the same time, it's Tim fucking Elliott, and he's one of those ain't got to get ready if you stay ready kind of motherfuckers. So I feel like this fight's going to be a lot closer than most people seem to be giving it credit for. What do you think, TJ?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Tim Elliott is not going to have a walk in the park. Sumer Daji has been fucking He's sitting number 12 for a fucking reason. The kid's got a lot of talent, but then again, you bring in a crafty veteran, even on short notice, those crafty veterans know how to get done. And the dude's never not in shape. He might not have a full camp, but that also roots against both guys when you got a short notice fight. And credit to Sumidarji for taking the fucking fight on just a couple of days' notice as well, because
absolutely,
he could have said, you know what? No, I'm not going to fight this crafty old veteran and risk my fucking ranking over this, but he's taking it. I think this one could actually end up in some fireworks just because with short notice, bantamweight, those guys never get tired. Even when they're out of camp, they're not fucking tired. So this one could get a little fucking crazy. It's up there on my list of fights that could be fight of the night even.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think one of the other ones, at least for me, that I am very much looking forward to and have been since they announced it was the one that TJ mixed up earlier, the actual Iron Turtle fight, Jun Young Park versus Andre Muniz, because we have seen Jun Young Park just be a fucking zombie. They don't call that dude the Iron Turtle for nothing. That motherfucker has walked through the goddamn fire and come out smiling and dancing on the other fucking side. We have seen it. But then you get Andre Muniz, who has just been quietly coming through and taking fucking limbs for the most part. Stylistically, this is one of those that if you look at it on paper, you would probably favor Muniz. But if you've watched the fights of both of these gentlemen, Andre Muniz very much reminds me of like a middleweight Ryan Hall. Like he might not throw 9 Imanari rolls in a row together, but he's almost always looking to hook that leg and roll to the ground or get you in a real simple fucking takedown just so he can get you to the ground and start doing some jiu-jitsu work. Whereas we've seen Jun Young Park have some pretty good defensive fucking grappling. He might not be the most deadly jiu-jitsu guy, but he's also pretty fucking slick for an older middleweight. When he's been put in compromising situations, he's pretty fucking good to yank limbs out of fucking trouble and then come back down with fucking power to answer for it here. This one, I think, has a lot more potential to be interesting than I think a lot of people are giving it credit.
Most definitely does. To be honest, Muniz needs this win way more than the Iron Turtle does. He's coming off of back-to-back losses. Got fucking submitted by Brendan Allen and then knocked out by the fucking Bear Jew. Look, I love the Bear Jew just as much as the next guy, but that dude does not have hands.
No, it's not his strong suit.
No. But when you get KO'd by a guy that doesn't have fucking hands, there's something to be said about that. Now, the Iron Turtle, his last fucking loss in recent memory would have been against fucking Buff Obama in Rodriguez there.
Which was a hell of a fight unto itself.
Yeah. Oh, but then right after that loss, he's been on a submission streak. He's got 3 submissions back to back to back. So I don't think I'm worried too much about seeing Muniz's ground game and Jun Young Park's fucking ground game. I think Park will do just fine there. The question is Muniz going to be able to stand with him long enough to be able to get Park into a fucking compromised situation? I don't know about that. But I have a feeling this could end up being a really cool fucking grappling match. With, of course, some fucking nice strikes thrown in there, but at the rate that the Iron Turtle's looking, I could see him submitting Muniz there. Albeit Muniz is a fucking ground specialist, but every fight starts on the feet, and well, Jun Young Park, not the greatest on the feet, but he is definitely not as bad on the feet as fucking the Bear Jew.
I was just gonna say, I think I'd say he's better on the feet than Craig is, and that doesn't bode well for Muniz.
No, especially coming off of a KO loss. This is going to tell you where his chin is at, too, because maybe he gets touched just right and Park gets it done real quick. But they do have it sitting as a coin flip, though. Like I said, most of the fucking fights on the card are pretty much coin flips. This is one of them. However, if I'm a betting man on this one, I'm riding the fucking winning wave of the fucking Iron Turtle right now. I don't think we see Muniz snap his 2-fight losing skid. I think we see a third one here, unfortunately. Because
I agree.
I like watching grappling fighters in MMA. I really do. Because
Good
I like to
ones.
see how they deal with strikers or to manage to get it to the ground and go from there. It's kind of the reason why I like watching fighters like fucking Bryce Mitchell. Not a great striker, but he does some crazy shit on the ground. But puts us into one of those fun little situations again. Jungyoung Park, not the greatest striker in this division, but overall, he's probably one of the tougher fighters in the middleweight division right now. And I'll say tougher because we've seen him take some beatings and still win.
Yeah.
So I think we're in for a hell of a show on that one. I think that one's kind of like that diamond in the rough that we've got going on this week.
Yeah, very much so. You know, as much as I hate to say it, I really feel like both of the ladies' fights on this weekend's card are kind of pointless. I feel like these are a good example of those contractual obligation fights where they have to go somewhere, and we literally have 2 cards left in the year, and neither one of these fights even belongs being mentioned on a pay-per-view, even in a fucking early prelim situation. So they put both of them on a prelim situation for the last fight night of the year. I feel like if gun to my head, I had to pick one of them. I think the one they're opening the card with, Alan Carr versus Dos Santos, is the more interesting of the two, but mainly even in that, only predominantly because Alan Carr is still undefeated at this point. She does have a draw, but she's still 4-0 undefeated at this point. We've seen Stephanie Egger come and go. There's nothing fucking special about that. Luana Santos, similar situation. Nothing really impressive about that either. I am curious here, though, looking up and down the roster really brings me back to the fucking co-main event. It's not as short notice as the people's co-main event in Elliott versus Sumar Darcy, but again, this is one of those situations where both fighters were, at least Roundtree was training for a different fight, and Smith hops up off the couch here. I'm curious how you think this one might shake loose, TJ.
This is going to be interesting to say the least. I mean, fucking Anthony Smith finally kicked his fucking losing streak after taking out Ryan Spann in a decision in his last outing. You got fucking Khalil Roundtree, who at this weight class looks like the best Khalil Roundtree that we've seen in a long fucking time. Yeah, he had one stumble 2 fights ago, but overall, moving up to light heavyweight, I think was one of the best moves he made because when he was fighting 185, it just wasn't it. And now you don't see as much fucking just death out of him. When I say death, I mean that whole fucking gas tank dying and just not able to keep up. And I think the best part of this actually has some good fucking implications for the light heavyweight division. Knowing that you've got a guy who's in the top 10 coming in on short notice to take on the guy who's just on the cusp of the top 10. Fucking Khalil Roundtree has a lot of ground to gain here if he can take out Anthony Smith on short notice. Anthony Smith, I don't think he loses anything in this fight either way. He took it on short notice, so if he loses, he took it on short notice. There's a fucking out for him. He's not going to use that. I give him credit. He doesn't fucking give bad excuses of, well, he took it on short notice when he loses. He says, I got my ass kicked. I got my ass kicked. To be honest, though, I like both of these guys. I want to see Anthony Smith make a run at the fucking light heavyweight title again. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Would I very much like to see it? Yes. But I'm more of a realist. I don't think so. I think this might be the spot where Khalil Roundtree finally gets that chance to start making a run towards the title. Because he hasn't done that yet. At least not in any meaningful way. A win over Anthony Smith would be that meaningful way to get him moving. Because Anthony Smith is a household fucking name at this point.
Well, yeah, it is.
I mean, not only is he fucking a great fighter, but he's a great commentator as well. He does great analysis on fights. I hate to pick against either one of them. What's crazy is they've got this pretty close to a coin flip as well for this fight, even though it's a short notice one. But I think the thing is here is Anthony Smith going to be able to outstrike Khalil Roundtree Jr. or get him to the mat before Khalil can fucking get those legs to work? Because he's got some nasty kicks in him. But I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. I think we're going to see Anthony Smith go out on his shield, as much as I fucking hate to say it. And not even out on his shield. He'll go out fucking swinging. He's going to go out on his sword. But I don't think he gets it done. I think we're going to see him get beat on for 3 fucking rounds, and Khalil's going to get that pop up, that chance to start talking about maybe give me the number 5 contender so I can make a run at that, you know. We'll see. I think it's an interesting matchup across the board, though. And with Anthony Smith coming back with a win now, that might be all the difference he needs to possibly get his ass motivated to go and do some work and say, hey, look, I'm not just the gatekeeper here. Yeah, I'm turning this guy away, but I'm looking forward and doing this on short notice. And also, maybe I'll make myself 50K and my kids will get an extra big Christmas present.
Right. No, I like the fight. I think it's a good fight. It's not short notice is a bit of a misnomer in terms of this fight. It's not the original schedule fight, but a couple weeks camp versus, you know, an 8, 9, 12-week camp is a little bit of a difference. But in terms of a camp for a short notice, 3 weeks is, like we said, Tim Elliott took it on 4 fucking days, literally came off the couch.
Yeah.
When we heard about Josh Emmett needing to fight for this week or for next weekend, Aljamain Sterling tweeted out he literally just stepped on the scale at 166.6 pounds and he could make 145 by next weekend. So he is throwing his fucking bait out into the featherweight water as well. Short notice fights aren't as much or as rare of an occurrence as they used to be. We've got more dudes.
Didn't Emmett get his fight rebooked?
Yes.
I was gonna say
Mitchell.
I thought it was Mitchell that took it.
Yeah, Bryce Mitchell stepped in to take it on a week's notice. But when they literally right after Emmett announced that Giga was out, that he needs somebody to step up on a week's notice, Aljamain Sterling was the first fucking person to say, I just stepped on a scale at 166. I can be 145 by Saturday, no fucking problem. So
yeah, and no, when I said short notice, I meant not a full camp. Now, I'm not saying 3 weeks is super short because it's not. We've seen guys do it on 72 hours even. And knowing that there's somebody who's doing it on 4 fucking days in Tim Elliott.
Right.
There's definitely a big difference there. Do you have time to train for somebody? Do you have time to cut the weight? That kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I think in this situation, the quote unquote short notice factor actually plays more of a benefit in Khalil Roundtree's favor than it does for Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is another one of those dudes that he never really has to get ready because he's always in the gym, whether he's teaching classes or he's working on something or he's helping somebody get ready for a fight. He's another one that's always active, always doing something. So it's not like he's going to have to, come off the couch in 3 weeks notice, walking in at 260, and he's going to have to cut down some rapid fucking anti-Thanksgiving diet and get into shape or anything like that. But the difference here, at least for me, is that Khalil Roundtree's style, whether you've got 3 weeks to plan for it or 12 weeks to plan for it, Khalil Roundtree's kind of Muay Thai predominant striking style, but real pressure heavy style versus Anthony Smith, who almost wants to play a lazier game, for lack of a better terms. He's more interested in going after the counters and using your aggression to start his sequencing. Khalil Roundtree's style doesn't really present a lot of opportunities for that, in my opinion, especially if he stays real aggressive, stays real bladed, keeps that front leg bouncing like we've seen him do. He spent a lot of time at fucking Tiger Muay Thai for good reason. And if he puts that to work against Anthony Smith, yes, Anthony Smith does have some Muay Thai training himself, but his style, at least in the MMA cage, is always a little more counter striking and then grappling heavy compared to Khalil, who's coming in, especially now that he's not cutting that extra fucking weight. Like TJ mentioned, he's got a little more power in his fucking stance. He's got a little bit more of a gas tank because he's not cutting that extra fucking water. He can absorb the strikes better because there's more water on his fucking brain. And that aggression combined with everything else that he doesn't have to worry about cutting weight now against Anthony Smith, in my opinion, I agree that the short notice, quote unquote, is kind of a built-in defense, even though he won't use it. But I feel like in this situation, this I feel is a worse short notice fight than the Tim Elliott taking Sumerdagi on 4 days, at least for Anthony Smith here. That being said, still a great fight, but that leaves us to our main event. Previously, the UFC Shanghai, now back to the Apex, like we mentioned, but still 135 pounds. Again, another not necessarily quote unquote short notice, but a different change of event. Originally, it was going to be Song Yadong versus Petr Yan. Petr Yan had to pull out. Chris Gutierrez stepped in. Again, we had a couple weeks, so we didn't have to worry about the Tim Elliott style. But again, this is the top 3 fights on this main card here, the co-main and the people's co-main event. All 3 had change-ups in the last couple of weeks, different fights than they were originally slated. But at least what we're looking at now, in my opinion, probably all 3 for the better in terms of what we've got for this weekend. But Gutierrez versus Song Yadong is a very interesting matchup here. TJ mentioned earlier, the odds do favor Song Yadong, and I kind of understand that. I almost feel like, at least for right now, leading into the fight, the media around Chris Gutierrez is kind of stuck on that fucking Frankie Edgar moment. Like, they can't really move on from that. And it almost feels like Gutierrez, like TJ mentioned earlier, he's in the moment. He said himself, I'm fucking scared. You'd be stupid not to be. Gutierrez is living in the moment in terms of the fight overall, but I don't know if his head is focused enough on Song Yadong individually, because I gotta say, as little hype as Song Yadong seems to be getting coming into this fight, he, in my opinion, might be one of the most well-rounded bantamweights that the UFC has on the fucking roster right now, if not the quietest badass in the 135-pound division, in my opinion. The dude can strike, the dude can wrestle, he's great defensively, he's great counter-striking, he's got good food movement, and he's got a gas tank that doesn't fucking stop. There's nowhere you can put Song Yadong where he's disadvantaged for the most part against almost anybody in the bantamweight division. But Chris Gutierrez also has a very weird, I don't want to call it his style, it's almost his sense of timing that's almost like more than a half step off from anybody else traditionally, kind of perfectly exemplified, unfortunately, by that Frankie Edgar situation, where we know how great Frankie is, but he just had that one step off timing that was clean enough to shut the fucking show down and, put the fucking lights off. I don't think he has that same opportunity here against Song Yadong, but I also think he could prove to be an interesting puzzle for Yadong to figure out. I still think he gets in there. I still think Song Yadong takes this one, but I think Gutierrez is going to make it very interesting to get to that point.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. Like I said earlier, the odds makers got it pretty heavily favored towards Song Yadong. And Chris Gutierrez coming in as an underdog. All I can just say, again, to fucking beat the dead horse here, they're definitely stuck on the, oh my god, you knocked out fucking Frankie Edgar. That's just a fucking, it's wild, because that was the first time that had ever happened. Ever. And that dude been around for like fucking 20 years at that point. So yeah, Chris Gutierrez has a big feather in his cap. Not a little feather, a fucking gigantic feather. Managed to put away somebody who couldn't be put away up until that point. But after that, he loses his next fight out after that, because they give him Pedro Munoz. And Pedro Munoz, not a fucking walk in the park for anybody. Then comes back off of that loss, gets himself back in the win column, takes this on relative short notice. Air quotes there, since we're now qualifying what is short notice and what isn't right now. To come out here against Song Yudong. And to be honest, to Chris Gutierrez is fucking credit. Smart move. Coming to take on the number 7 ranked guy in the bantamweight division as the number 14 ranked guy. There's a lot of ground to be gained there. A lot. This has fucking big implications for the bantamweight division. So if Song Yudong fucks this, Chris Gutierrez gets fucking rocketed up there into the top 10. He's skipping a lot of steps to get up there. But then again, you've got a fucking guy in Song Yudong who has come out and absolutely decimated people. The only 2 losses on his fucking record were one to Kyler Phillips back in the beginning of 2021, and then his last loss out against Corey Sandhagen, which was a doctor stoppage. He wasn't fucking actually KO'd. That was a doctor stoppage. Then he comes back, and what does he do on his fight back? Goes out and somehow takes out the power of the mullet and Ricky Simone, and fucking doesn't just beat him. He KO'd him in the 5th fucking round. So yeah, he danced with the crazy fucking Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone is, in my opinion, he's another version of Clay Guida. Gas tank for fucking days, goes. Song Yudong managed just fine. I think Song Yudong as a striker is much better than Chris Gutierrez. Yes, Chris Gutierrez does have some odd off timing, which that's going to be a fun little puzzle for Song Yudong to figure out. And I say a fun little puzzle, I mean, he's going to eat some shots during this fight. He's not going to come out unscathed. I'm not saying Chris Gutierrez is a can, because I don't think he is. I think he's well deserving of the ranked number that he's got. But I don't know if he's ready to break into that top 10 and blast somebody with a number 7. But like I said, that the one thing that makes me kind of give him a little leeway is knowing that he's in the moment saying, yeah, I'm scared shitless. Anybody who says they're not is full of shit. He's living in the right moment right now. There's not a lot of fighters that do that. A lot of fighters will look past people. And those are usually when we see people get fucked up. It's in these weird situations like this where you go, the guy knows what's in front of him. He knows he's on relative short notice, that this is a big moment. Now, that being said, though, is he going to be able to perform under the bright lights in the main event of a fucking fight night? No, it's not a pay-per-view main event, but it's a main event nonetheless. It's 5 fucking rounds. Are you ready for 5 fucking rounds with somebody who's going out there and absolutely destroying people? Song Yudong isn't just beating people, he's finishing them. The only person he didn't finish there recently was Corey Sandhagen, and that's because the doctor stopped him before he could finish him in the 5th. So I think we're going to see an interesting main event here. I think Chris Gutierrez gets finished in the 4th round. I will give him credit because he's a pretty tough motherfucker. I think he'll make it to the 4th round before Song Yudong finishes him. And it'll be some sort of TKO, whether it's ground and pound or a fucking knockout.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't think we see judges' scorecards on this one. I think Gutierrez is going to make it interesting for as long as he can, but I think you're right. I think we probably end somewhere in the 4th, with whether it's ground and pound or whether it's fucking doctor stoppage. I think Song doesn't need a judge's scorecard for this one as well. That being said, though, that is all we have got for this particular episode. To find out if we know what we're talking about or if we are full of shit, you will have to tune into the fights this weekend or wait till next week's recap to find out. That being said, though, when we finish things up around here Thursday nights, that is not the end of the story, because tomorrow morning, and most Friday mornings, the young fellow who didn't make it this evening and his other half put out their podcast, the Slow Bake and Contemplate podcast, over on Spreaker.com. You can catch the links for that and their socials, as well as their own channel over on the I'm No Joe Discord server all links down in the description as well. But when Friday rolls through, that is not the end of the fun either, because when the week rolls back through, bringing us back over to Wednesday nights over on the Golf T Vapes YouTube channel, we do a little thing we call the Foggy Fairway. We mix some e-liquid, we talk some advocacy, we talk some shit, we hang out, we have a good time. There is always a rotating crew of interesting characters over there, but it's a fun time. You should come check it out. Links for that, as well as his social medias, are all down below as well.
Thanks, sir. And to those of you that are listening, my apologies for being late. Unfortunately, life got in the way. I'm fucking here now. Suck it up, buttercup. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, old Punchy Kicky Meter here, he actually does more than one thing. In fact, he does multiple things. Some would even say many things. So if you want to know all of the many things that the meter does do, you can go down below, click on Linktree / the meter does many things, or use Linktree / I'm no Joe. That'll take you to all of the many things that the meter does do, if you weren't aware that there were many things that he indeed does do.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. That being said, that is all we've got for this particular podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, if you like what we get up to around here, please give us a thumbs up. We would appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are turned on whatever platform you're picking this up on, whether you're watching these ugly mugs over on youtube.com/I'mNoJoe or listening to these sultry radio voices in the all audio format over on anchor.fm/I'mNoJoe. Either way, we appreciate you sticking around. Please help us do what we do. On the other side of that coin, though, if somehow you have made it this deep into the podcast and you don't like what we get up to around here, first and foremost, what the fuck are you still doing this deep into a show you didn't like? That being said, just give us a thumbs down and then go fuck yourself. We won't even dispute it. All that said, that's all we've got for this evening. So until next time, boys and girls, remember, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good times.